Well, the EU has added more names to its Russian blacklist, seeking to punish Moscow over Crimea. These fresh sanctions come after a similar move by Washington. RT's Elena Golushko is keeping track on the restrictions now being slapped on Russia.
The European officials have wrapped up their summit in Brussels by adding another 12 names to the already existing list of 21 names of Russians who will have sanctions imposed on them. Now, among those names, we can find both speakers of the Russian parliament, both of the upper chamber and the lower chamber, as well as a presidential aide to Vladimir Putin and a deputy prime minister who is overseeing issues such as defense and space exploration. Now, this comes hot on the heels of a very similar list with pretty much the same names on them that has been issued by the United States. And in response to Washington, Russia has indeed come out with a reciprocal response, issuing sanctions on 10 Americans. However, at this point, as Russian President Vladimir Putin seems to have said, Russia is out of the tit-for-tat game of retaliation.
Regarding the American sanctions and visa regime in terms of Ukraine, I think we should at the moment avoid from retaliatory moves. If we go with a visa regime against Ukraine, millions of innocent Ukrainians will suffer since they go to Russia to work and earn their money here.
Now, these are individual sanctions. However, European officials have repeatedly said that if Russia doesn't change its position on Ukraine and doesn't change the situation around Crimea, it could face more dire economic sanctions that will affect not just individuals, but the entire country. Although it is not yet clear how exactly Europe is going to go about that, since Russia has just finalized essentially the legalization process of admitting Crimea as part of Russian Federation.
Putin has also mocked the US blacklist as the people on it apparently have nothing to do with Ukraine, but instead all belong to the president's judo club. Gennady Timchenko, he's a businessman who back in 1998 founded the club where Putin was training. Brothers Arkady and Boris Rotenberg are also businessmen and members of that same club. Yuri Kovalchuk is the co-owner of the Rossiya Bank, also one of the judo club's founders. And as for his bank, it's also become the target of Washington sanctions, which inspired Vladimir Putin to open an account and have his salary paid there.
Regarding this bank, as far as I understand, this is a middle-sized bank. I personally don't have an account in it, but I will definitely open one on Monday.
Well, earlier I talked to Daniel McAdams, who is executive director at the Ron Paul Institute. He thinks the principles on which the US blacklists people are based on a lack of any logic.
The real question is, what is the end goal of these sanctions against Russian individuals? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, what specifically does the U.S. want? It seems to me the Russian side has had specific goals in mind. They wanted to uphold the February 21st agreement. They wanted to recognize the referendum in Crimea. But with the U.S., you have some sort of vague notion that these people are being punished for undermining democracy in Ukraine. Well, if that's the measurement stick, then what about all of the U.S. State Department officials and all of the NGOs who precipitated the problem in the first place by being involved with the overthrow of the legal Ukrainian government? They should be subject to their own sanctions, maybe.
Of course, that referendum on Sunday was really the starting point for all this major pressure on Moscow. From your point of view, Daniel, was that legal or illegal, as the West says?
The U.S. precipitated this event by overthrowing the government, ushering in to power a group that's threatening the Russian minority in other parts of the country. So in a sense, they're to blame about this. And it really is not uncommon for countries to protect large numbers of their ethnic population over the borders. The U.S. has done it. Israel does it around the world. So it's not that unusual to see this happen.
The US sanctions triggered a retaliation on Russia's social media, as many decided to blacklist the American president himself. Well, this sign states Barack Obama is no longer welcome in this honey shop. One local newspaper posted a message on its Twitter page sanctioning the US leaders and members of Congress from entering its offices in the Siberian city of Omsk. And one Irish pub in central Russia is prohibiting the US leader from popping in for a pint. Well, here are some other light-hearted responses for you. This announcement bans the American president from patting his dog. And the girl here holds a warning that Obama can't come any closer than 40 meters to her. So clearly many people not taking the threat of sanctions that seriously here in Russia.